Hello, welcome to the podcast. My name is Michelle and this is Totally Abstracted. Today I want to talk about something that keeps surfacing again and again recently. That feeling of being blocked, frustrated and doubting yourself as an artist. It might be the feeling that you should be further along by now, that other people seem to get it more easily, that your work isn't saying what you want it to say, that the gap between what you see in your mind and what appears on the canvas is insurmountable. It might even feel like you want to give up forever. And I was there very recently. Yesterday I tried a charcoal landscape. It just didn't work. Not at all. I ended up painting over it with a chaotic mix of Payne's grey acrylic and red ink. It might become a background to something else. Who knows? All I know is that what I intended creating did not work and I felt like a failure. And that seemed to be the trigger then for my brain to start listing all my shortcomings, like it was building some sort of case against me. And I ended up feeling really down about things. Last week, I did another painting, similar story. I shared it on YouTube, but since it's been drying, I can feel that it needs more. I guess I wasn't finished when I thought I was. And now I don't know whether to do a new follow-up video, or just fix the painting without recording it, or just put it away in a drawer. It all just feels really uncomfortable. But yesterday, after the failed charcoal painting, after I'd finished sort of obliterating it with Payne's grey and red ink, I at least did something different. I decided to change direction. First, I went downstairs for a cup of tea. Then I went back upstairs and painted something completely different. I painted a portrait. Different marks, different headspace, different rules, if there are such things as rules in our painting. Basically, I just went for it. No recording, no thinking about how this was going to look later on YouTube. And I just loved it. Not just the result, but the whole process. Seeing that face emerge, the push-pull of different values, creating form that creates the face. It was just wonderful. I absolutely lost myself in the flow. And as I finished painting and started thinking about what had happened, I realised that during that session, I had stopped telling myself I was a failure, and I had just started to remember why I paint in the first place. And I think there's a lesson here, and it's not paint portraits instead of landscapes. It's that frustration with a painting, or a number of paintings, is information, not a verdict. We tend to treat frustration like it's proof that we're stuck, proof that we're failing, proof that maybe we've hit the edge of our ability, proof that everyone else was right and we should have been more realistic about our limitations. But frustration is usually just a signal that something needs to change, not that something is wrong with you. So maybe you need to change the scale, the subject, the tools. Maybe change the energy, the time of day, the music playing, whether you're sitting or standing. Change. Not to escape the difficulty, but to somehow loosen its grip. Because what I've noticed is, when I'm locked into a piece that isn't working, my entire field of vision narrows. The problem becomes the only thing I can see. My options feel limited, my thinking gets rigid. And this is the complete opposite of what expressive work needs. So changing direction isn't giving up, it's giving yourself some breathing room. And another thing I notice, in myself and in others, is how harsh the internal language gets when something doesn't work. We don't say, this piece isn't resolved yet. We say, I'm rubbish. We don't say, okay, this approach didn't land. We say, I don't know what I'm doing. We don't say, I'm learning something here. We say, I'm wasting time. Now that doesn't make sense when you really look at it. A single painting should not become a character judgment. A technical challenge is not evidence of fundamental inadequacy. And a moment of struggle is not proof of unworthiness. Perfectionism doesn't sound like perfectionism when you're inside it. It sounds like standards. It sounds like you're being honest, like you're being realistic, like you're not settling for mediocrity. But what it often is fear pretending to be sensible. Fear of wasting time, fear of not progressing, fear of being seen, and fear of being judged. And sometimes it's fear of discovering that maybe you're not as good as you hoped, and fear that all this effort might not lead anywhere. And the particularly sneaky thing about this perfectionism is that it disguises itself as care, as if being cruel to yourself is somehow more honest than being kind, as if beating yourself up will motivate you to do better. But I've never, not once, created something I loved while simultaneously hating myself for finding it a struggle. So when you're blocked, one of the most useful questions isn't, how do I fix this painting? It's, how am I talking to myself right now? Because you can't think your way into expressive work while treating yourself like you're the enemy. You can't access intuition while your nervous system is in threat mode. You can't play when you're scared, and you can't explore when you're convinced that every wrong move is evidence against you. Your inner voice matters. When you're blocked and frustrated, it's easy to construct this narrative that you've somehow lost it. Lost your ability, lost your instinct, lost whatever it was that made the good work happen before. But you haven't lost anything. You're just in a different part of the cycle. Sometimes the job isn't to push through. Sometimes the job is to step sideways and remember who you are when you're not under pressure. To remember what it feels like to make a mark without it needing to be perfect. To remember, as I did when losing myself in the portrait, that you actually like this. That beneath all the frustration and doubt, there's a reason you keep coming back. And sometimes that remembering needs space to happen. It needs you to stop trying to force the thing that isn't flowing and do something, anything, that reconnects you with the pleasure of making, even if it's small, even if it's what you perceive to be unimportant, even if it doesn't count towards whatever imaginary timeline you've constructed for yourself and your art. So if you're frustrated right now, try this. Don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what does this moment need? Less force, different tools, a smaller surface, a total change of subject, permission to make something ugly, permission to make something easy, permission to stop for today and come back tomorrow. Frustration doesn't mean stop, it means listen. And doubt doesn't mean you're failing, it usually means you care. And caring is not a flaw. Caring is what makes you keep trying. Caring is what makes you notice when something isn't quite right. And caring is what drives you to reach for more than you currently know how to do. But caring also needs boundaries. It needs to be separated from shame. It needs to be allowed to coexist with kindness. This season of the podcast is all about the Expressive Artist Toolkit. And one of the most important tools isn't a brush or a catalyst wedge or a palette knife or a medium. It's how you meet yourself when things don't work. Not with blame, not with evidence gathering about your inadequacy, but with curiosity and flexibility. With the understanding that making art is not a straight line and never has been. If you can only make work when everything is flowing easily, you're going to make very little work. But if you can learn to navigate the stuck places, the frustrating places, the places where you don't know what you're doing, with some degree of steadiness and self-compassion, you'll keep going. And keeping going is not a small thing. Keeping going is everything. So you're not behind, you're not alone, you're just in the middle of it. And the middle is always messier than the highlight reel. So be gentle with yourself today. Change direction if you need to. Lower the stakes if it feels like they're crushing you. Make something small and unimportant and see what happens. The block isn't permanent. The frustration isn't proof. And the doubt isn't the truth. It's all just weather. And as we all know, the weather can change. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. And as always, keep things totally abstracted.